Hey everybody, welcome to the first podcast episode of We the People, brought to you by your bedside nurses here at St. Joe's. I know that we all recently received an email stating that, the organization thinks it is important that every nurse has access to clear, balanced information before making any decisions that could impact our hospital community. And we agree. We agree with that. The hospital has had lots of opportunities to present information to everyone. And we would like the same opportunity so that there is clear and balanced information being presented, and everybody has the information that they need to make the decision. So we'll start by introducing ourselves. I'm Tara. I work in labor and delivery at the College Station Hospital. I have worked for St. Joe's for 17 or 18 years. And so I've been through a lot of changes with this facility from, I started back when it was a little Catholic nun-run hospital to now being a part of a national corporation, and all the changes that have come along with that.
This is Brittany Jones. I'm a NICU nurse over in College Station, and I've been here almost 17 years.
My name is Dab, and I started at St. Joe's in 1994. I've worked med-surg, postpartum, labor and delivery, and I am also one of the nurse navigators.
Hi everyone, my name is Jana. I work in L&D as a nurse in College Station, and I also work in Bryan in the ER. I've worked for St. Joe's for 10 years now, just over actually. And before that, had the joy of bringing patients to St. Joe's as a paramedic for 10 years. So I've seen a lot of change come and go over these years.
And so we just kind of want to point out that we are current bedside nurses at this facility who are affected by the topics that we're going to discuss and who are interested in seeing change. And I know a lot of the information that has been presented from the hospital is being presented by administration and people who are not in our bargaining unit, who are not experiencing the things that we as bedside nurses are experiencing. And so I'm not sure if that's whose opinion I care about whether a union is needed and how beneficial it would be. So we would just like to speak on behalf of bedside nurses who are actually experiencing these things and how we feel it could impact us.
And we also wanted to make sure that everyone knows that it was the bedside nurses that actually reached out to NNU because we felt that we weren't being heard after multiple attempts, and this was basically our only option.
Yes, National Nurses United did not come seek us out and say, we want to start a union at your facility. That's not how they work. They come when nurses reach out to them and say, hey, we're interested in you helping us learn how to organize and unite to be one voice here. For this first podcast, we're just going to kind of go through as much as we can the points that were made in Bill and Mel's first podcast and just make sure that everybody understands the information that they presented and gets some other perspectives on those topics.
So maybe first we should start by introducing them, right? So we've introduced ourselves and the two people that kind of have been really frontlining this effort from the organization out that we're talking about are Billy Rice, who's the director of EMS for St. Joseph. He's got an MBA, he's got a master's of jurisprudence, he's a licensed paramedic, he is not a bedside nurse. He's also part of the administration team. And then Melissa Kendrick, she's also got an MBA in MHA. She's got a BSN. She is a nurse. She has not been bedside since 1999 and is not currently being affected by any of the things that caused our community's bedside nurses to reach out for help.
Let's just jump right in. One of the first points they make is they say in their podcast, we would prefer to maintain a direct relationship with our teams and keep the union out of it. There's really nothing about forming a union that says that you can't have a direct relationship with your team. They also say later in their podcast that the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, prohibits direct dealings about conditions of employment. That is not expressly true. Unless we stipulate something in our contract that says we want interactions to be done differently, which I'm not sure why we would, that there's nothing that prohibits us from speaking directly to our managers. What we are afforded, however, is the protection that if we are going to be brought in for any disciplinary action, we don't have to do that alone. We can take representation with us. We can take a coworker with us. So I'm thinking that that's kind of what is being misconstrued is they aren't allowed to just come corner us and bring disciplinary action without us having a union rep or a coworker with us.
Another point that was made is that the union will make it so that your manager is unable to work with you during like emergency scheduling situations. So, like you have a death in the family and you need off, but you don't qualify for bereavement, you're unable to go talk to your manager or your manager's not able to work with you to figure this out. That is completely untrue. Why would anyone put that in a contract to where we can't work with our manager to figure this out? So none of that is going to change.
Last week, we met with Sandy. She is the nurse president of NNU, and she's currently an operating room nurse. And while we were talking with her, she was texting her manager to discuss her schedule. So obviously, that is going to be something that will continue.
I think they keep bringing this point up about, creating division and putting this kind of divider in between you and your management team to make it seem like there's a third party involved in this union. And this is a great time to remind everybody that there is no third party. We are the union. There is no business that comes and makes camp in a room in the basement and runs our hospital. It's us.
Yes, we will be the ones deciding on our contract, negotiating our contract. If we win this vote and begin negotiating a contract, all of these reps that are here right now helping us to organize, they're gone. They leave. There will be one person that stays here and is assigned to us, and they're here to support us and to help us learn how to do things and how to negotiate and stuff like that. So they aren't telling us what to do. There is no third party. There are no rules or regulations that we're following from NNU. The only thing we're following is what is in our contract, and what gets put in our contract is decided by us, only the nurses at St. Joe's who are in the bargaining unit. And I'd also like to point out that they keep saying that they want to maintain this direct relationship, like we can't get anything done if we don't do that. That's what we have right now. And actually, if we are unionized, it helps our managers out because what's going on right now is we've gone to our managers directly about all of these issues. And the thing is, they don't have the power to do what needs to be done. They can't make these changes. All they can do is go to the people above them and say, this is the situation, this is what needs to be addressed. And if they get told no, that's the end of it. They don't have the power. So what we can do with this union is help make these changes that the managers are powerless to do. So this actually helps our managers out a lot. And a lot of the nurses that we've talked with from other hospitals that are unionized say that they actually work a lot more closely with their managers now than they did before.
One thing that Mel hits on in that podcast that they put out recently was the difference in the bargaining unit and the union and what's covered and what. I think that's a really cool thing for us to talk about because she made a point to say just because you're part of the bargaining unit doesn't mean you're represented in the union if you're not a dues paying member.
And Billy asked, how do they choose the representative that represents you? So let's talk about that.
We're going to vote on who represents you. Each unit is going to be able to choose one of their nurses to be their representative. Somebody that you work alongside every day, someone that you know and are friends with. You will choose who best is going to represent you.
And let's talk about how it's decided who's in the bargaining unit. The hospital decides that. When we filed our petition to have a vote, the NLRB reaches out to the hospital, and the hospital is who decides which nurses are and are not included in the bargaining unit. A lot of times what happens in these situations is the hospital wants to make the bargaining unit as big as possible because that means you have to have even more yes votes to be able to win your election. It doesn't really make sense, some of the nurses that have been included in the bargaining unit, because they aren't really affected by the things we're going to probably be bargaining for. However, the hospital has chosen to include, a number of nurses that aren't necessarily bedside nurses. But that's the hospital's decision. We don't get to decide that. You will be represented as best as you can be in the contract. You will have somebody that you choose to represent you for whatever department or group you're in. However, there just may be things that are being bargained for that don't affect you, and that's okay. If you like everything just the way it is in your department or where you work, guess what? You don't have to change anything in the contract, but you can choose to preserve things the way they are. Common Spirit could come in tomorrow and change something about your scheduling situation or your staffing situation. You have no power to stop them from doing that. But if everything is the way you like it right now with a union contract, you can put those things in the contract just how it is right now, and you preserve that. And so you don't run the risk of them coming in and deciding to change something that you already like.
Your voice is heard by filling out your bargaining survey. So even nurses that don't want to be dues paying members of a union still fill out a bargaining survey. Every nurse in the bargaining unit fills out a bargaining survey. And this gives your representatives, when it's time to vote on them, a framework of what is important to the nurses in our union here in the hospital.
And that brings up something else that they kind of talked about in their podcast. What if your individual interest is not in the best interest of the group as a whole? Well, I mean, that's pertinent now, too. Every single person at the facility is not going to be happy with any change that's made. They come in and decide to change the way they do holiday schedules. Like, some people might like the way it is now, and the change that they make might benefit one group of people but not another. I mean, any change that's made ever is never going to 100% be in the best interest of every single individual employee. But the way that you combat that is by filling out your bargaining survey. Every single individual's interest is reflected in their survey that they fill out. And so, yeah, it's going to be the common denominator. Like, what does the majority of people want to see happen that's going to go forward? But if you don't put your interest and your voice out there in that survey, then it's kind of like voter act. Like, you don't have much room to complain if you didn't even let your voice be heard. So we can't guarantee that every single person will get exactly what they want, because nobody can guarantee that in any scenario.
I think it's important now to talk about kind of the really reference something called agency law. And this pertains to what Tara just said. So, agency law is definitely something that does have to do with a union coming into your hospital. He kind of made it seem like it's a bad thing, but really, and most significantly, agency law and the framework that that legal standing creates for a union coming into a hospital is that it legalizes the need for a union to make fair and balanced and unbiased decisions for the entire bargaining unit in good faith. And that doesn't mean just dues paying members of a union. It means that decisions have to be made based on the bargaining surveys of the entire bargaining unit in good faith. So decisions aren't going to be just made for those that pay their dues and are definitely part of the union versus not. It's going to be made as balanced as possible.
And when he was talking about that agency, he was saying, oh, you're going to give up your legal right of representation to an agent. Again, they're implying that there's going to be a third party speaking for you. There is no third party. This union is just us. And the people who are speaking for you are the representatives that you've voted for that work beside you on your unit or in your pod or wherever, and are representing your interests that you have put forth in your bargaining survey. The NNU rep that's here to help us through that process is not deciding what things are going in our contract. They are not deciding what is negotiated or what we ultimately accept in our contract. We are representing ourselves. It is not another person or another agency representing us. And so let's talk a little bit more about the contract, they talk about there's no guarantee. Well, no, nobody can give you a guarantee of results. We can't guarantee results, but we can guarantee that you'll have a voice.
That will be heard. A lot of the union busting that we've been hearing talks about how the NNU is promising us all the things, such as like a certain wage grid, and there are no promises. The only thing we can promise is for our voice to be heard.
Wage grids that have been provided have been examples. And now I know they keep referencing this Las Vegas wage grid. Okay, first of all, let's be clear. It's not a Las Vegas hospital. They are a suburb of Las Vegas. But the reason that wage grid was used as an example is because that community is similar in size and cost of living to this community. Okay, they didn't they didn't use a wage grid from a hospital in a big city that has a higher cost of living or a small town that has a lower cost of living. They tried to use one that was similar to our situation so we could better have an idea of what could be in the realm of possibility for us. And then they try to throw in the Ascension Seton wage grid. They're not promising us the wages that we saw in that Nevada contract. They're promising us an improvement from what our current situation is. So, for example, when they show you this Seton Austin wage grid and their wages are a lot lower than what we currently have, you have to put that in perspective. Those wages are higher than what they had to begin with. They all got an 11 to 21% bump as soon as their contract was signed. And then, they had a built-in raise of what, 3-ish, give or take, percent every year. You can't compare apples to oranges. The Austin Hospital is a different hospital system. It's not nearly as large of a corporation as Common Spirit is. They're in a different town, in a different community setting. We can't compare these. And they started off in a much different place than where we're starting. So they're not promising you a specific wage. What they're promising you is an improvement. Where we start when we bargain, that's our floor. And we only go up from there.
Yeah, we never ratify
We
something.
do
that
not
lowered us.
negotiate something less. There's not a takeaway in our negotiations. None of these hospitals that have negotiated contracts have they had to give something up to gain something else. It hasn't happened. You may not get fully everything that you're asking for, but you will get an improvement from where you are now. They keep saying, oh, they failed to deliver on Vegas wages. Well, they didn't fail to deliver. They weren't trying to deliver Vegas wages in some of these hospitals. They were trying to improve the wages that they currently had. And that has happened in every single contract.
One thing that I laughed at when I heard actually was when somebody said in the podcast, I don't remember which one said it, but that having a union is like having a big book of rules that admin and you have to follow. And I outwardly said, well, yeah, like we have that now, except we're the only ones expected to follow it. And it can change at any time, regardless of what we say and do and need.
Exactly. What we're trying to do is get to decide what the rules are
And
in that contract.
Liable to follow them as well.
Exactly. They also mentioned, that there's not staffing ratios in those contracts. Well, I have no idea if any of those hospitals bargained for staffing ratios. And another point is nobody has said we're trying to negotiate for a specific ratio. What we have discussed is negotiating for staffing by acuity, which means one day on your unit, it may be appropriate for the nurse patient ratio be 1 to 5. Another day, the patients may be very high acuity and it's more appropriate for it to be 1 to 4 or even 1 to 3. That's why in many of these contracts, there's not specific ratios because that's not really what we're going for. We're going for the ability to be flexible and justify more staff if our acuity is higher. So you can't put specific numbers and specific ratios in there, but you stipulate that you are allowed to staff by acuity.
We would like the bedside nurses to actually be able to say, this is a very heavy patient. I cannot take another very heavy patient and have that nurse's voice be heard instead of some outside agency or some higher up being able to say, well, no, you just got to take it. That's what we're trying to do. Let's have staffing by acuity and let the nurses at the bedside and the charge nurses decide what the staffing needs to be.
Another thing they bring up is that we can't negotiate, for support staff like techs and things like that. Well, no, we can't directly negotiate for them. They're not a part of the bargaining unit. What we can do with the union is any action that we would take on our own behalf to influence the hospital to make a change that we are bargaining for, we can use those tactics on behalf of other departments as well. So if our phlebotomists are being treated real crappy and being overworked and told they have to, do XYZ and it's a lot, we can choose to picket and do things in support of them. We would have the power to put pressure on the hospital to change the things that the people in that department want to see changed. So no, we can't negotiate directly for those, but we can show solidarity and support and put pressure on the hospital to do better for those.
Which is only going to be for the good of the entire hospital system. I mean, look at what you have now. You have hardly any EVS available ever. You have hardly any lab available ever. All of these tasks are falling back on you as a nurse, and that's under our current leadership without a union. So if we can influence and create positive change in other areas, we can absolutely help create positive change there.
I mean, gosh, in the College Station Hospital right now at night, we rarely have more than one person working in the lab. I cannot tell you how many times we have had like an MTP in progress, but also we need stat labs on that patient. Well, it's one or the other. The lab person is either running the MTP or they're running your stat labs. Like they can't do both. How is that good for patient care?
We've talked to so many nurses who belong to hospitals that have unionized, and we've heard example after example. One of them was that their patient care techs were always being floated to be a sitter, and the nurses together were able to convince that hospital system to actually hire dedicated sitters so that their patient care techs could continue to do the job that they were hired for. We will have that ability to make changes when we stand together.
We absolutely have the power to make changes in those areas. It's something we can talk about a little bit more maybe in another podcast because we're not going to have time to talk about all of the things, but there will be a committee that we have that can work after our contract is negotiated on all of those things. It's ongoing. It's not that we just do work one time every 3 years when we're negotiating a contract. It is something that is actively ongoing every day.
So, speaking of putting the pressure on the hospital, I think we need to go into quickly that strikes are not mandatory. A strike is one of the last things that we would choose to do if we felt the need.
Nobody from NNU is coming in and saying, you have to strike, okay? If we decide that we've gotten to a point where the hospital is not negotiating with us in good faith and we've done all of the other things that we can do to try to put pressure on them, and we think, okay, our last step is to threaten a strike, we would vote on it, first of all of the members, you vote, and you have to have like a super majority, like 90% of people that are in agreement that we need to strike for it to happen. It is planned for 1 to 2 days. NNU does not endorse open-ended strikes. So I know that recently a hospital in Michigan, I think it was striking, and they had been striking for a while. They are not represented by NNU. They are represented by Teamsters. That's a whole different organization. The way they function, totally different from NNU. So you can't really compare that. NNU does not endorse open-ended strikes. 1 to 2 days, the hospital gets a 10-day warning that on these 2 days we're going to strike. That gives them the opportunity to move patients to another facility, to stop admitting patients. And a lot of times what happens is the hospital doesn't want to lose that revenue. They don't want to have to do all that. So they end up negotiating. Very rarely does the strike actually happen. Let's talk about if you're a dues paying member of the union and you didn't want to strike, you didn't vote yes, and the strike gets authorized. And do you have to strike? No, you don't. If you don't want to participate in the strike, you don't have to. There will be no punishment, fine, discipline, none of that. That's not how NNU works. So you can be a dues paying member of the union and choose not to strike and choose to come to work on if you're scheduled to work on one of those 2 days. I mean, everybody's not going to be scheduled to work on one of those 2 days, so it doesn't even necessarily affect everybody, but nothing about it is mandatory.
In the podcast, they really hit on like trying to create this division between the bargaining unit and the union, like we talked about earlier. And one thing they said is that your voice just doesn't matter. And they asked for more opportunities to create possibilities for your voice to matter now. They referenced shared governance. They did all these things. We've kind of already talked about how your voice absolutely does matter, and bargaining surveys are a thing for a reason, for the whole bargaining unit, not just the union. But let's like dive into this shared governance thing. We've all been here for a long time now. Shared governance has been around for a long time now. I've been a part of unit-based councils, and I know that y'all have too. What changes have we affected with our voice and shared governance in this organization overall?
I mean, about the only thing I know that they let us do is celebrate people's birthdays on the unit or decorate. Yeah,
Throw a holiday party.
nothing meaningful about how our work is done. They might listen to what we have to say and they're like, okay, thank you, and then don't do anything with it.
Right.
I don't feel like the My Voice surveys do anything at all. We have been saying for years that we need certain things over and over and over again, and nothing has happened.
Yeah, they use these My Voice surveys as a way of saying, your voice matters. They get all of our feedback, and every year the scores get lower and lower. And what happens is they take those scores that are representations of how we feel our management and administration is doing, and they come back and tell us how these scores are our fault or because of us, and that this is what we need to do to change these scores. That defeats the whole purpose of the survey. The survey was about them, but then they make the problem about us.
Right.
And let's not forget that their bonuses are dependent on how well they do on these surveys. So that's really the only reason why they care that everybody fills these surveys out, is because if you get all your surveys filled out, then
Wait, who gets the
the
bonus?
managers
Get a bonus for
participation
good.
on having
having good
having
scores.
good
19
having
scores?
good participation and having good scores on the My Voice survey. So that's really the main reason that they're doing this. The information that they get for it, they come back all the time and say, these are the results and this is what we've done. And usually all the things they say that they've done in response to the My Voice survey is nothing directly related to anything we said in the My Voice survey. But they're trying to present it that way to make you feel like they've done all these things. And really what we're asking them to do is change the way they are doing things, and they don't want to do that. Okay, let's talk about something else they brought up. A union is a money-making entity, and they make more money than any healthcare entity. So your dues go to support your local union. So the support staff that is assigned to you, your local union rep, the legal team that will be assigned to you in case you need them. And for the first, 7 to 10 years, I think they said, that a new union is in place, your dues don't even cover all of those expenses. So they're pulling from other more established unions' dues to help cover your union. So for at least the first 7 to 10 years, you're not even really making enough money to cover your own union. And then beyond that, the top executives of this national organization make, like 200 something $1,000 a year. That's their salary. What is the top executive of Common Spirit making? Like 35 million. Do not tell me that NNU is bringing in more money than any healthcare entity. That's just crap.
And they're not even bringing in more money than our local CEOs, right?
No,
He's
because
clearing $1 million.
yeah, between the top 8 ones here making $8 million. Like, no, no. The union's not a money making entity.
And how much are the dues?
So the dues are 1 hour of your base pay per pay period. So
After the contract is in place.
after the contract is in place, not while we're negotiating. The dues don't start as soon as the vote is, won. The dues don't start until you have voted to ratify your contract and the contract is in effect. So it may take, 9 months for us to negotiate our first contract. You're not going to pay dues until, 9 months from now or whatever. And that's if you work 24 hours or more per pay period. So if you work less than that, then your dues are only half an hour of your base pay. And it's taken directly from your check per pay period. So it's not like you got to make this one lump sum dues payment, at the beginning of the year or something like that. It's per pay period and it's 1 hour of pay. I will gladly give somebody 1 hour of my pay to help me negotiate a higher wage and better staffing. Like,
Absolutely.
no brainer for me. They talk about the union using seniority as a means for deciding everything. Well, again, we're the union. We decide how things are negotiated and decided. And I'm not sure that anybody necessarily wants to stipulate that seniority decides anything. I personally don't have any problem with how we schedule currently, or how holidays are divvied up. So unless the majority of the bargaining unit were to say, we want everything done by seniority, then that's not a change we would negotiate in our contract. So no, seniority doesn't necessarily decide everything. And again, that was implying that NNU is going to decide how we negotiate and make decisions. They don't do that. We decide. We, the local nurses at St. Joe's.
I've gone to talk with a lot of our local nurses, and I will tell you, everybody is very concerned with the new nurses to make sure that they get a proper orientation, that they are not overwhelmed, that they have enough of what they need to do. That they nobody becomes a nurse so that they can lose their license. Nobody becomes a nurse so that they cannot take adequate care of their patients. We all want the patients to be taken care of. And our new nurses, we are very concerned that they feel like they have the proper training and the proper tools to be able to take care of their nurses. So this isn't going to be I'm an old nurse. It's not going to be all about me. I want the young nurses to succeed.
I know when we were all asked at some point why we wanted a union in this hospital system, a lot of us answered things just like that. We want to be able to better and more safely take care of our community here. We live here. We know people that come to these hospitals. We want them to come to a safe place.
Exactly. And I think one of the questions on the My Voice survey is if you would recommend this hospital to your friends or family members. I'm pretty sure the last two surveys I said no, absolutely not.
But it wasn't because you don't trust your fellow nurses.
No.
I trust you guys with my life, with the lives of my children. That's a no-brainer right there. I absolutely trust the people that I work alongside. It's the system.
But is your mom going to end up in ICU when they're tripled?
Yes.
Right.
That's what we're trying to fix.
Something gonna get missed because your family member is on a unit that's understaffed, or that's staffed with a lot of new nurses that didn't get proper orientation, or are they going to need blood on the night that the
There's
blood
only
blank
one
has
lab.
one lab person that's busy doing something, like
Mhm.
those are the things that make me not want to bring my friends and family member to our facility. Not because I don't trust my coworkers, which, if you went to the town hall, which I guess everybody did because they were mandatory, it was heavily implied that the results of our My Voice survey were because we didn't trust our coworkers. And again, I would like to point out that the My Voice survey is a survey of our managers and administration, not of our coworkers. But that was just really insulting to me. We sat here and gave you our voice, and we said, we don't think you're doing a good job. And they said, it's your fault. You don't trust your coworkers. That just really made me angry.
I think it made a lot of people angry. And I heard a nurse in the session that I went to actually point that out to Monty, that she very much trusts her coworkers and her team that she works alongside with every day. What she didn't trust, and the reason she answered no to that very question, was she didn't trust the system. She didn't trust admin to provide them with the tools they needed, with the supplies they needed, with the team that they needed, and the support. And that's why she voted no. And I was so proud of her for saying that in that town hall. That was great.
So let's talk one more thing about this vote no thing. Billy and Mel were very quick to say that if you're unsure how to vote, vote no for now. Do you vote for president the same way? Like, you need to educate yourself, and everyone needs to have unbiased information. What I would encourage everyone to do is speak with nurses from unionized hospitals who are non-biased, who have lived it and seen the results. If you're unsure, don't vote. If you vote yes, it's because you're educated and you know the truth. If you're unsure and vote no, what are you doing for your coworkers?
Yeah, I think it's a little irresponsible to encourage everyone to go vote and vote no just because you're uneducated. We have attempted to provide ample opportunities for everyone to get educated. At this point, if you're not educated about it, it's because you haven't sought out these opportunities. It's been very difficult for us. The hospital has made it very difficult for us. They have violated our federal rights. We have a federal right to be able to go talk to our coworkers about this, and we have been stopped at every turn. We've been kicked out. We have had disciplinary action taken against us for simply going and trying to present this information to our coworkers so they can be educated and make an informed decision. And the hospital is actively trying to stop us from doing that. So,
Despite what their email says.
And why?
Yeah.
Why? Ask yourselves, why would a corporation, I'm not even talking about our local managers. We grew up with these people, we trust them, we respect them. Why is the corporation not wanting us to unionize? Let's think about that.
Like what's
What's
in it
the
for them?
holdup?
Yeah, obviously they would lose power over us and we would have a voice and they don't want that. And let's talk about this information and access to information that we're trying to provide you. We have nurses who work at other unionized hospitals within the Common Spirit system and outside of the Common Spirit system who have flown here on their own dime from other states to talk to you, to provide you with information. Hey, this is how the union functions in my hospital. These are the things that did happen, that didn't happen. This is what is true. Who is a better source of that information than the nurse who is living it? And these nurses, they don't have any skin in this game. It does not matter to them if we win or lose our election. They have chosen, that's how much they believe in the union. They have chosen on their own free will to come here to talk and help educate you. So, I mean, please take advantage of these opportunities. There have been numerous Zoom meetings. You know, we have been trying to tell everybody about them. These nurses are on those Zoom meetings. Come to one of these meetings. Listen to what they have to say. You can ask them anything you want to ask them. If you want to get the information, go directly to the source. Somebody who's actually living it. You know, Dab mentioned earlier that the president of NNOC was here in town this last week, walking the halls of our hospital. She is still working as a nurse, okay? She's not sitting in some office somewhere making decisions. She still works as a staff nurse. She came here on her own dime to talk to us, to encourage us. She walked through the hospitals and talked to nurses. She has offered to give anybody her personal cell phone number. I mean, she said we could post it on Facebook. She doesn't have a work phone and a personal phone. She has one phone, her personal phone, and she doesn't care who has her phone number. If you want to call her and talk to her about what it means to unionize, feel free. If you're totally against the union and you want to call and talk to her, feel free. She doesn't care. She will talk to anybody. That says a lot to me. that the president of a national organization would come here and would give her personal information out, her personal phone number, to speak to you. So please take advantage of these opportunities to get information from the best source possible.
And we'll keep making them. We'll keep doing Zooms, and we'll keep providing chances to talk to these nurses and chances to talk to us and anybody. Like there will continue to be opportunities for you to learn up until there's an election and even past that. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions. We'll get you in contact with somebody to answer them.
Yeah, so I mean, there's just so much more that we could talk about. We will obviously have to do some more episodes because we can't talk about everything right now. But
I so wanted to talk about the improvements they've already made.
oh,
That's fine. Next time.
Next time we can do that. So yeah, stay tuned, and we will try to make this information available to as many people as we can. Please share it with your coworkers and give us feedback on questions you might have or things that you think we haven't addressed.
Thanks for listening.
See you next
Thank
time.
you.